Thanksgiving is right around the corner. For me, it isn't Thanksgiving without some stuffing. So you might be interested in how you could use your Instant Pot to make stuffing. And it turns out stuffing comes out pretty good if you slow cook it. And Instant Pots have a slow cooker setting. So today we're going to take a look at how to use the slow cooker setting on your Instant Pot to make some delicious traditional stuffing. If you don't have an Instant Pot, but you do have a slow cooker, this recipe will also work in any standard slow cooker. Welcome to You Can Cook Anything with Bob and JP. I'm JP, and I'm about to make some stuffing. Check out the description if you're interested in the exact amounts. Let's get started. You're going to need about 6 cups of dried bread. And when I say dried bread, it's basically bread that's been left out to dry. Now, if you only have fresh bread, one way to dry it up is to put it under the broiler. So I'm putting my bread on a large sheet pan, and I'm going to stick it under the broiler and watch it relatively closely. This isn't going to be dried bread, it's going to be more like toasted bread, but it should work out fine. While that bread is toasting, I'm going to chop up some celery, and some onions, which is where a lot of the flavor is going to come from in this stuffing. Once the bread is good and toasted, I'm going to need to break it up into small chunks with my hands. Just try to get some relatively uniform chunks of bread. So to start cooking this recipe, we're going to set our Instant Pot to saute. And like so many other recipes, one of the most important ingredients in this recipe is butter. And you're going to use 2 sticks of butter here and let them melt. So what's going to happen here is once the butter is done melting, it's going to kind of sizzle. There's a lot of liquid in butter. There's also a lot of fat, of course. So as it starts to sizzle and splatter, you can go ahead and add some poultry spice to that. Now, I actually purchased some poultry spices, some popular poultry spices to use for this recipe, but you can actually make your own mix of spices. It's mostly sage and thyme and rosemary, and I will put the ratios that you can use to make your own poultry spice in the description if you'd like to do that. Along with your poultry spices, you should add some salt and pepper at this point, and add those according to your tastes. You're going to want to throw the vegetables in there, and you're going to soften those vegetables up in that melted butter. And that could take a little while. You're not trying to brown these, you're just trying to get them to the translucent stage. What I also did here was add some nutmeg because there wasn't any nutmeg in the poultry spice that I bought, and I think nutmeg adds a nice kick to the recipe. Once your veggies are translucent, it's time to start adding the bread. I like to add the bread a couple of handfuls at a time and then mix up the vegetables so that they become well incorporated. While you're mixing in your bread, you're going to want to turn the saute function off because you're done sweating the vegetables and you don't want to burn the stuffing on the bottom while you're trying to get the bread in there. Near the end of adding your bread, you need to add a couple of cups of chicken broth. Now you're going to need to judge how much liquid you need, and it's going to vary depending on a few factors, but keep adding chicken broth as you mix the stuffing and allow the bread to absorb some of the chicken broth. This is also going to cool the mixture down a little bit and prepare it for adding your 2 beaten eggs to this mixture. Keep mixing. Mix gently. You don't want to break up all of the bread, which might make the whole thing too mushy. Carefully fold the ingredients together. Once you're happy with how it's incorporated, you're going to use a lid and set your Instant Pot to its slow cooker function for 4 hours. If you don't have the Instant Pot lid, go ahead and use any lid of a similar size and shape that you have for a pot. It doesn't have to be an incredibly tight-fitting lid. However, if you don't have a lid that is a decent fit, monitor the stuffing to make certain that it isn't drying out too much over the course of those 4 hours. Near the end of the 4 hours, if you have it on hand, chop up some fresh parsley and add it to the stuffing. I didn't happen to have fresh parsley, so I actually used some dried parsley. I mixed it in and allowed it to rehydrate a little bit in the stuffing. And over the course of those 4 hours, you've made stuffing. Now, one of the ways this differs from my favorite stuffing is that you don't get the crispy corners that you get from stuffing that has been baked in a pan in the oven. Of course, you can put this under the broiler if you want. You can try to crisp it up. Feel free to experiment with the sauté function to try to heat the stuffing unevenly at the end in order to possibly get some browning on the bottom. I would advise using the low sauté function. You don't want the stuffing to burn, and you don't want it to stick too much to the bottom. This recipe makes a delicious traditional tasting stuffing, but of course you can adapt this method to your favorite stuffing and stuffing ingredients. It should work out fine. There you have it, stuffing made in a slow cooker or your Instant Pot. Don't forget to like this video if you've enjoyed this recipe, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one. Remember what Bob and I always say, you can cook anything.